We're back, and I'm going to create a new optional project. This one is called the insult generator. Actually, it's called the insult and complement generator. Insult slash complement generator. And it is going to use it's going to use something called lists. I'm working. No, you can't cut through. It's going to use something called lists in order to generate insults and compliments. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose two sprites. And I'm not going to choose this sprite because I want something to be a little bit different than that. So I'm going to choose two sprites, and I want them to be kind of fantasy people. So a goblin. Goblins are good for insults. And so I'm going to have goblin over here. And then I'm going to choose another sprite, which is something nicer than a goblin. So I'm going to choose a sprite. And let's see, it's going to be fantasy. And what's nicer than a goblin? Oh, a mermaid. Mermaids are nice. Okay, so those are my two little people. I'm going to make them about the same size. So I'm going to shrink my mermaid by clicking on the size thing here. Maybe 60%. Maybe 65%. Let's see. Okay, good. So I'm going to have my mermaid over here and my goblin over there. I want my mermaid actually to be facing the other direction. So I'm going to go ahead and flip her by clicking on the costumes. And I think if I select everything, I can flip horizontal. There we go, flip horizontal. Good, now the mermaid's facing that way. Now what I want my program to do is I want it so that every time I click on a goblin, it gives me an insult. And every time I click on a mermaid, she gives me a compliment. So I'm going to use a new type of variable for that. So normally variables contain one value. Like you create a variable like speed, you click on it, it has one number. But you can also create this thing called a list. And a list, and I'll make this for all sprites, each one, this is going to be my insult list, is a list of items. So there are multiple things. See how this has a length of 0, and it's empty. It's an empty list. But I can actually add things to the list by clicking on this. So the first thing, these are insults, are you are funny looking. Okay? And then I'm going to click on it again, and I'm going to say I see England, I see France, I see your underpants. These are really classic insults here. And then I'm going to click another one, and I'm going to say, you smell like cheese. All right, and I think snowy snowflake is smarter than you are. Okay, so these are my insults. So I've got a list of insults here. If I click on this, I can actually hide this insult list from here. So I'm going to click on this little thing, and it's going to hide them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say whenever this guy is clicked, please show me a random insult. So my code for this can be pretty simple, which is events. When this sprite is clicked, then say something for 2 seconds. And what am I going to ask it to say? Oh, not think. I'm going to ask it to say something for 2 seconds. So right now it says say hello for 2 seconds. So if I do this, it'll say hello, hopefully. Why'd that not work? Didn't I build that already? Or did I put that on the, I put it on the mermaid. So when I click on the mermaid, she says hello for 2 seconds. I can take the same code, drop it onto the goblin, and now when I click on the goblin will say hello for 2 seconds. But I actually don't want the goblin to say hello. I want the goblin to give me a random insult. So I currently have, if I look at my variables, I can see my insult list, and I'm going to say, please give, let me think, how am I going to do this? Item 1 of insult list. So, because this is insult list, so if I go hello, and now I click on the goblin, it's always going to give the first insult. Oh, I'm still in the mermaid. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to put that on the goblin. So she's going to say hello again. Shows you that I make mistakes too. All right. Now I want this actually to be on the goblin, so I'm going to drag this to goblin. And instead of the goblin saying hello, the goblin is going to say insult 1. So every time I click on the goblin, the goblin is going to say the first insult. But I don't want it to always say the first insult. I want it to be a little bit like Siri, where it gives a random insult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please choose not item 1 of insult list, but pick one, 1 to, how many insults are there? Let's see. If I go to insults, I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 insults. So I can say 1 to 4 of insult list. Pick random 1 to 4 of insult list for 2 seconds. So now, when I click on the goblin, I get a different insult every time. Now, instead of saying random 1 to 4, it would actually be better if I said random 1 to length of insult list, in case I want to keep adding things to the insult list. So this will say item, and then a random number from 1 to length of insult list. So it'll still give me an insult. Maybe I also want to make it so that I can actually make new insults too. So I'm going to go ahead and add that functionality as well. So I'm going to create a new sprite. Let's see, and I'm going to paint this one. And I'm going to make it the plus symbol, a nice purple plus, I guess. And I'm going to hit plus. Then I'm going to grab this and make it bigger by grabbing the corner. And that's a little bit too big. I'm going to put it in the center. And now I'm going to move it over here. This means add another insult. So when I hit this guy, I want it to add an insult. Let's see how to do that. So this is my plus button here, and when this sprite is clicked, let's see, controls. When this sprite is clicked, where is that? Maybe down here. Could be in sensing. Oh, heck, fire. Where did I put that darn thing? Oh, there it is. When this sprite is clicked, then I'm going to add an insult to insult list. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to go to variables. And I'm going to add thing to insult list. But what am I going to add to insult list? I have to make it an input. So how do I get an input? Let's see. I haven't done this for a while. Round, join, not, join, days, real, ask, what is your name, and wait. Okay, and then here's the answer. So ask, what insult would you like to add? And then the answer is what came about from this. Add answer to insult list. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. What insult would you like to add? I think you are less intelligent than a computer. That's what I'd like to add. All right, so now let's take a look at the list itself and see if I actually added that. Well, actually, we can sort of test. Let's see, I keep clicking on this. Aha! I think you were less intelligent than a computer. Do you see that I added that insult? Okay, good. So now all I have to do is create another variable. So I'm going to create a compliments one for her. So I'm going to go back to my variables and I'm going to make a new list, which is going to be called complement list for all sprites. And I'm going to add a couple of compliments just to get us started. I think you smell wonderful. And I just hit return to make another one. You are having a good hair day. Or I can hit plus to make another one. You are smarter than Albert Einstein. Okay, so these are my compliments. And I want to go ahead and hide that list again. So when I click on her, let's go to the mermaid, instead of saying hello for 2 seconds, it's going to select item, and then I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the goblin. So remember, the goblin is saying this. So I'm going to take this whole piece of code, drop it on the mermaid. Now I'm going to go to the mermaid, and I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need her to say hello. And she is going to say a random item, but not from insult list. I need it to be from complement list, and I need to have it pick random item 1 to length of complement list. Let's see. All right. Now, I also need this to be duplicated, so I'm going to hit this with 2 fingers, and I think that'll be able to duplicate it, or maybe on my computer I have to hit Control. If I duplicated it, so there's another sprite, I'm going to move it over to here. Stop. Okay. Stop. All right, so now on this sprite, instead of adding answer to insult list, I'm going to add insult to complement, or add answer to complement list, and I'm going to say, what complement would you like to add? Okay, so let's go ahead and see if this whole thing works. So my goal is that my bad guy here, the goblin, always says something mean to me. And I can add new ones, right? So I'm going to add a new one, which is you have a hairy nose. Okay, it's my new insult. And so now, oh yeah, look, it actually is in there, okay? And she gives compliments. And I think that I can add a new compliment. What compliment would you like to add? I think you are a lovely person. All right, so now she gives compliments. So the real reason we did this project is because I wanted you to know that what lists are and how lists work. So lists are a certain kind of variable where more than one piece of data is stored. It's actually a list of items is stored. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate my little goblin because it's just too much fun. So I'm going to always have them in motion. So when this sprite is clicked, I'm going to switch to the next costume. So let's see, looks, and I'm going to say next costume, wait a tenth of a second, let's say, and then do next costume. So wait a tenth of a second, and next costume. Because I think they each have 2 costumes. So let's go ahead and see if that works. So when I do that, well, we probably should have them switch costumes before that, like that. So it looks like they're talking, see? You smell like cheese. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for her. So I'm going to take her costumes here, and so it's this piece of code here that I added to the goblin. So I'm going to drop this on the mermaid, go to my mermaid, find that little piece of code here, put it before the say. So I'm going to slide up here until it's all before the say. Now I hit run, and then she should do something when you're having a good hair day. I think she does too much. So let's take a look at her costumes. So I probably just want to do these 2 costumes. And I also need to flip this one because I flipped this one. So I'm going to go to this costume. I'm going to go ahead and flip her. And how do I do that again? Let's see. Where's the flippity-doo-dah? Flip was here before. Oh, I know why, because I have to click on the arrow. So I'm going to flip horizontal. And now I'm going to delete these 2 costumes by hitting this little X thing here. And I'm going to delete this one. So now she's going to do what I want. You are having a good hair day. You are funny looking. All right, my project is working. If you want to challenge yourself, a really tough challenge is how to not say the same thing twice in a row. But I'm not going to teach you how to do that. You'd have to figure that out yourself. I'm going to go ahead and save my project. File. Save now. Whee! All right, so this is the insult complement generator, and it teaches you what a list is and how to use lists.